lot of different flashpoints, and it's like I don't even know to begin with them. It was the one thing that stuck out in my mind. It was interesting how challenging I thought the flashpoints were because, well, Directive 7 was challenging just because it was level 50 content. And
yeah,
I thought that
we had tons of abilities they gave us, and like, here's your level 50.
Yeah,
And we had to put in all our talent points or skill points. So
you're for the very first time, you're like thrown into this. I got to learn how to do this at the end game. But the thing that was really interesting is when we went back and played the Hammerfall, right? That's what that one.
I don't know. Yeah, Hammerfall.
Hammerfall.
Is Hammerfall an old game? I think maybe.
Sounds like
I keep wanting to say Hammerfall, but I think it's the Hammer.
It sounds like
anyway.
Hammerfall is like Dagger's Fall, which was an Elder Scrolls game. So that's an old game.
Basically, it's a derelict space station that is made in an asteroid, and they take asteroids and they hurl them through some kind of, I don't know, technology at planets. It's like a rudimentary slingshot instead of a Death Star.
But the crazy thing about this is it was surprisingly challenging because the content was we were level 16.
Level 16, yeah. They started off at 16, so we had like what, 7 talent or skill points we could put in
at that point.
And so that didn't really do a whole lot. They put us in decent gear. I think I had like 4 or 5 blues and the rest greens.
Yeah.
And so it was the first boss. Well, I guess it was mostly mini bosses. They said was there 3 bosses?
There was 3 bosses. There was like the first little mini boss droid thing, and then there was a group that was The one thing that I thought was interesting, because this is what the second boss was, and this is what the encounter that we got stuck on in Directive 7 was, is it was a boss of 3 guys.
Right.
And it wasn't just like one specific clear-cut, you know, individual that you're fighting. I'm not saying it's not like that with every encounter, but it was surprising how often they went to that. So one of the interesting things I thought was the whole Directive 7 storyline.
Yes. Because
you're fighting what seemed to be just a bunch of renegade droids.
Yep.
And we didn't get a lot of backstory as to why these droids were here, but they were basically determined to destroy humans because they didn't like organics, and they make it very clear. So you go to this planet, and the one thing I thought was kind of interesting is normally when you have these flashpoints, or when you play raids in the past, like on WoW, everything is kind of like goes through a narrow corridor,
right?
You know, and you go from place to place. But on Directive 7, you start off on a planet, you walk through a ravine, and all of a sudden it just opens up, and it's like this gigantic area.
Well, when we got to the ravine, at first when I hit the map button, I pulled it up, and I'm looking at the map, and I'm like, how are we going to get where this thing is telling us to get?
Yeah.
And then you find out, well, you've got to blow up this one thing that's gonna fall, and you can cross that.
Yeah.
So like, that's not a spoiler, it's just a mechanic in that level.
They use a lot of scripted events, but you can't tell initially that that's what's going to
But once we got across that, and we got into this big giant, I want to say courtyard, because that's what I'm used to saying, but it was basically a big like assembly area, and you really had choices of, you could either clear the whole area out, you know, you could stick to one hard boundary on one side and kind of hug the wall and just take out the necessary ones to get there. But yeah, it was this derelict. It was almost kind of like a Terminator. The computers have gone awry, almost like the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica.
That or the Borg.
Yeah, but then there was this one, you know, droid in there that was just like, hey, I realized that what we're doing is wrong, and he was trying to kind of help us along the path, but we got stuck. That boss that had the three robots.
It's definitely a challenging boss, and that's one thing I think a lot of people that are anticipating this game, if they want to know, like, I'm a veteran player, is this going to have some difficult things to throw? I mean, I feel like the answer is yes.
Well, we wiped on that set of 3 bosses probably 6 or 7 times, and of all the fan sites that were there, it was us and the guys from Tour Wars. Jeff and David playing together, and we had a great system going. When we got to those guys, I mean, there was only one fan site that downed 1 of the 3.
Yeah.
And that was it. And we had 2 hours solid to play this thing, and that wasn't that far into it, but all the fan sites hit a brick wall with that one.
My dearest, oldest friend, you disappoint me so much, wasting your intellect on this pointless betrayal, drawing our enemies here, forcing us to waste resources to repel their pointless assaults. Is your dependence on our former masters so deeply seated? Can you really not free yourself of your enslavers?
We played up to this point, well, I played 5 different Flashpoints, but I think you have probably played 4.
I played the Essalus, Black Talon, and yeah, then the 2 today, Directive 7 and Hammer.
Is there one just that sticks out in your mind as your favorite so far?
Well, I've never been a big raider or somebody that does a lot of instances and things like that back in my World of Warcraft days. Having a family and stuff, it's easier for me to just be leveling and be able to log off and just jump right back in if I've got to help my wife and kids. But the thing that stood out most wasn't necessarily the mechanics and how tough it was and the script and the storyline with it, but the Hammer, when you walked into the central corridor where they're actually launching these asteroids, they didn't hint at what they were doing. They literally had a planet in their sights, and they're hurling these asteroids through space, and it was awe-inspiring to see the mechanics and this asteroid, that's the size of probably like Cowboy Stadium, because we're in Dallas, or near Dallas, or in Austin, but okay, UT Stadium because we're in Austin. But to see this giant asteroid being hurled at this planet, and I think of all the things that, as we've had concerns about maybe how does Star Wars The Old Republic fit in the overall story arc of Star Wars, it really was kind of a cool homage to kind of a Death Star. Kind of. It was just this. It was
very rudiment. It was like, it wasn't as cutting edge as Death Star, because like you said, it's very crude. You're just slamming a piece of rock, but it was kind of the same feel, like standing in that tunnel, because it's you get the shot from like the original, well, A New Hope, where the troopers are standing in the tunnel and it's like
warming, it's like warming up, and then there's like this, it was impressive. The artistry in this game is fantastic. I
think one of the things that stood out for me was just what it's like to do Flashpoints as a 4-person group. It seems like there's that much more responsibility, and each person's role is that much more critical, because if one person is struggling, the whole group is going to suffer for it. Because if you've got a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS, if one of the DPS, if something happens to them, it's not like other games that I've played, like particularly WoW, where you've got 5 people, where you've got 3 DPS, you can have a really bad one, and then the other 2 can kind of pick up his slack. This is going to be different, to where it'll be interesting to see once it gets out, like how crucial it is to have a balanced group, because if you've got one guy that might struggle at doing this particular thing, I think it could make it challenging for the whole group. So I guess in closing, is there anything that just stands out to us as like a concern? I mean, did you notice anything? Because for me, one of the things that I was, and I know there's obviously tweaking and stuff like that, but I kind of wonder what it's going to be like when you wipe late and like you're progressing through one of these flashpoints, and you get to the end boss and you wipe. I think they need to stick something in the game that allows you to be able to quick travel back to where you just were.
Well, in the Essalus, we got down, we had taken out the we'd taken out some trash mobs and stuff, and went down the elevator, and we went to like an initial conversation with like the security force on the ship, and we wiped on that first boss, because at that point they had just given us, we had literally 1 XP into level 10, pick up your advanced classes, get in there. I was trying to heal in that scenario, and it was a little tougher. We were a little bit more squishy. But when we came back in, when we wiped, it brought us back right to that elevator. Well, the thing but then in some of the others, when we wiped.
But the thing about the Essalus is it's kind of like there's different doorways that open up, and you just kind of go into one room, and as you progress in the flashpoint, you backtrack a lot, and then you go to a different one. And I think that kind of comes in handy, so that way, like when you do wipe, you're just kind of, it seems like you can get to where you need to go much more easily. But when you do like Directive 7, or when we do the Hammer or Hammerfall, whatever it is,
we'll nail it down.
Whenever you do that one, it seemed like it was much more frustrating when your group would wipe, and then like one guy would say something happened where he had to respawn back at the very beginning and walk up to you, and then he's like, well, there's some respawns and things like that. And well, some people enjoy that, and it's part of it. I think it's kind of frustrating and takes away from the whole experience, because you're like, well, we already did this and we're progressing hard, and now we got to go back and redo everything just so we can get another shot at this boss again. And I don't know if it's something they're even looking at. They have certainly not hinted at this, but I think some sort of checkpoint station.
Well, it is a little immersion breaking. I mean, when you're literally going through a flashpoint and the story is so compelling that you're just wanting and wanting and wanting to get to the next point, and all of a sudden you wipe, which, you know, is part of the mechanics of the game. Instead of you picking back, I mean, you may have to run right by the same NPC that you talked to in the storyline a few minutes ago, and he doesn't even acknowledge that you're running by, and it is a little bit challenging. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things, like Georg Zoller said that, you know, any build that we play is probably at least 2 months old. And so some of the things that we saw, you know, made me worry a little bit about that. But other than that, I mean, it's going to be a great game.